That's what you do. You buy these players that cost money and make a difference in it. But we never do that.
Never complains, gets up, gets on, with a smile on his face.
We just want you to sit in your chair and go, hip hip hooray, for the Western press and the Western narrative, regurgitating the same old, every single day, without this. If you haven't seen it before, please watch the first two episodes, the second season, something like Stallone.
We are on the site of the castle.
And it was the first time the Beatles had really stopped being semi-professional almost.
Look at that.
Absolutely fascinating.
Good evening, all you fellow historians and everybody else who tends to look in. Anyway, before I start, I've got to mention this. I really have. It's about the memorandum that's been put out by Russia in Istanbul. And in my opinion, it's a good one. It really is, because it leaves Ukraine with something. And the West, especially Trump, has to accept it. They have to. It's as simple as that. People don't realise why the likes of Russia went in Ukraine in the first place. It's been going on for years, this. And once there was the Maidan coup d'etat in Kiev in 2014, and then the bombing of ordinary Ukrainian citizens in the east of Ukraine by this Kiev regime was shocking. Thousands were being killed, thousands. They were Russian-speaking people. And Putin was saying, listen, this has to stop. We've got to stop it. He was asking the West to step in rather than it. And he got that fed up from 2014 right up to February 2022, when he decided enough's enough. And he went in to save the people in the Donbass area from being massacred. So this deal today, or yesterday, it gives Ukraine autonomy. It really does. But he needs not NATO on the doorstep, because if you look at it here. Look at it here. Imagine, no disrespect to our Irish brothers and sisters, but if the likes of say, who can we say? I don't think the only enemy we've got is what they say that they are, and that's Russia. That's Russia. Let's think about it. What if Russia went on the doorstep of Mexico? Put it that way. And the Chinese, right on the doorstep in Mexico of America. What would America do? It's only the same as what Russia are doing with this NATO. NATO surrounded everybody. It's got bases all around the world. NATO. Think about it. Who runs NATO? America. America runs NATO. And they've surrounded Russia. Think about it. Please think about it. What was America do if it happened to them? Look at the go back to 63, 62, 63 with the Cuban Missile thing with Khrushchev and JFK. Soon put a stop to that, didn't they, the Americans? And that was only putting missiles on Cuba. It's shocking what they're doing to this country. And I'm talking about Ukraine. You've got the most corrupt leader leading it. He's defunct. He's not even a leader. This is the problem. So Russia have asked about an election. That's one of the conditions for a ceasefire, of an election, because they know that Zelensky will be thrown out. Anyway, I'll be talking more about that on Friday in the current affairs. But I had to say it. It's a good one. It's a good memorandum. The good terms. They really are. I don't know. And just a few weeks ago, you had Trump saying that we won the war. Come on, please. We won the war. And before I bring my wonderful, wonderful friend on, Anthony, do you know what? He just looks at me and goes, but he knows my political views as well. I'm a more or less to see. Oh, the lovely Myra. Hiya, Myra. Hi, Frank and friends. As she carries on, I say, Frank, I just send your regards to Jesus. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Myra. I really appreciate that, because DW is a cracker fella. He really is, just like our lot on here. I hate saying a lot, you know. I really do. Lovely Tuscan. Ciao Franco and everyone, hope you're all good. Yeah, we're good. Everyone, we're all good, Tusk. We really are. Hello, Myra and Tuscany. Hello, Frank and Anthony. I love you, honestly, God. I really do. You're all letting know. The history man himself. Says it. Myra, like and subscribe. Thank you, Myra. Really appreciate it. The black and white point. Even, you know, being on holiday. Oh, hi, where have you been? Sly Boots. Never told us, though, did you? Oh, Johan is our Man United brother here. Smashing fellow. Good evening, Frank. Good evening, Johan. Dino. It's funny how Russia is always portrayed as the enemy. Even in films, it's always Russia, when in fact the real enemy of humanity is America and ourselves, who just bomb the crap out of countries and steal their resources whilst enjoying puppet government to load the total line. I'll have to put my glasses on, you know. I've got them with me this time. Yes. Reading glasses. And Johan, Frank, NATO should have disbanded when the war started. Yeah, of course. Even Trump said during his campaign he's going to get rid of NATO. What's the use of NATO? They're a dangerous regime, NATO. They just like bombing places. You've only got to look all around, just to Google where they bombed. I remember them bombing Serbia in 1999 for nothing. 60-day bombardment. Keith Reedy. Hiya, Frank. Hope you're well. Yes. George said, good evening, Frank and Anthony, and the chat. I'm going to bring in Just bear with me on this. God, blimey. Excuse me. Now I have to put my glasses on because of the... Good luck, Lindsay, if you're looking and thank you. Thank you. Right, I'm going to bring in my good friend, international artist, lovely man. There he is. Shall I bring him on or shall I leave? He just laughs, you know. But there he is my good friend, Anthony. Hi, Anthony.
Good evening, Frank. Good evening, one and all. Thank you, Frank. Got me out.
Do you know what, Anthony? You know, like, we've been looking at different things. I'm going to show you something right away. And the rest here. I think to be made up with this. This is a map of Liverpool going back to 1868, 1867, 1868. But I want to point out a few things. Oh, look. Tony. Even a Frankie. Oh, I Tony, the mince pie man. I says once, I like mince pies, you know. You know, it was Christmas time. And he came up with a massive tray of them. Loads, you know, from Costco. He said, "Yeah, Frank."
You go.
Brilliant. Isn't that lovely? And he says, "Hello, Anthony." The Scots.
Hello, Tony. Good evening.
I've got something for you, by the way, Anthony. When you come over.
Oh, yeah. Would you be soon? Because I've got something for you and for Darryl.
I've got you something. It will be made up, mate. Scottish Bear. Good evening, Frank. Just popped in to say, all right, you Bear. I hope you're well, mate, because Bear hasn't been too good lately. Oh, that's so sad. I'm made up that he's popped in. Really am. Oh, thanks for joining us. Johan says, good evening, Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Johan.
George said, Anthony, Starry Night in the background. Yeah.
That's me latest. I've always wanted to have it on my wall, George. Always for years since I was a kid. And I started painting it 3 years ago. And then, as with Frank, I went through a series of health issues. And I picked it up, started finishing. I've got to finish it by the 18th of June, which is the date that he painted it. I think 1889.
Oh.
Yeah. So I want to finish it by then. But that's been me passion for a couple of days. But other stuff, of course. Good spotted, George. Well in.
Yeah, he's got eyes, you see. He's got eyes. He observes everything, as George said. Oh, the lovely Jean Neely. It's one of my ex-students, mature students she was. Brilliant as well. She loved history. She loved it. And she told me about, she went on a cruise down the Panama Canal and all around. She went around Brazil. She got to a place called Maltas in Brazil. And she told me, she said, Frank, you won't believe this. I said, what's that? I thought she was going to talk about monkeys and things, you know. In Brazil, snakes. She said, you know what, there's a plaque. She said, as we stepped off board, she said, this plaque and this landing stage, she said, this is a replica of the landing stage in Liverpool, England. Wow. That's in Maltas. In Brazil.
Fantastic.
Unbelievable. Lynn says, even if Frank and Anthony in bed, getting my pain relief in the morning. So very early start. Good luck with that, Lynn. Good luck with all that.
Yeah. All our good wishes.
Yeah, absolutely. The Scottish Bear. Good evening, Anthony Fella.
Good evening back, Scottish.
Right, I'm going to show you something here, Anthony. I think you'll enjoy it, honestly. I hope so, anyway.
Of course I will.
Right, and it's, where are we? Yeah.
Not P45, is it?
Well, at that. Well, at that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to show you something here. And it's where I was born and grew up, actually.
Oh.
This little place here.
Yeah.
That's also Street there, right? Now here, right here, was known as Little Italy. That's where Little Italy was there.
Oh.
Of Scotland Road. Right. Now, I grew up here. This is where I grew up. You know, all these came down and tenements was built and it became Jerry Gardens and Jerry Crescent. Point is, here's what I want to say. This church here was known as St. Anne's Church. We never ever seen it, you know, as kids. We never seen it. It was demolished. But there was a graveyard. There was a graveyard there. The graveyard was left. And we used to go from here, because it was all concrete, you know, to play football and things, because there was green, if you like, greenery in the graveyard. So we used to play football, believe it or not. All the stones, most of the stones were flat on the floor, you know, the headstones, that is.
Yeah.
The headstones. So we, you know, grass grew over them, so we used to play football there. Here's the point, and it's a great point. It really is. Who was buried there? Here. Who was buried there? Was a lad by the name of Wyndham Sadler. Now, Wyndham Sadler was the very first British aeronaut to cross an expanse of water. No other balloonist. This was in 1817, by the way. I'm sorry about the date, but it was in 1817. And this fellow, Wyndham Sadler, he took great inspiration from his dad, James Sadler. Took great inspiration from him. And you see, the Montgolfier brothers, the French lads, they built this balloon, made this balloon, whatever it was, and went up. They were the very first human beings to go into the sky, if you like, you know, above ground. And they did it in 1774. 10 years later, 1784, James Sadler became the very first British aeronaut to go upward into the sky. So he was the second man. Yet no balloonist, after all them years, no balloonist was ever cross an expanse of water, simply because if they go down into the sea, there'd be no one to pick them up.
Yeah.
Because there was no steam engines then. There was no, you know, that's why ships got the name, the liner, because they could go in a straight line rather than being blown off course with sail. With sail, they were blown off course. So no one would, you know, go down and cross an expanse of water. Nobody. So Wyndham Sadler took the charts from his dad because his dad tried to cross from Liverpool to Dublin, and he could never do it. He was always forced down by the winds and whatever. It could have drifted away as well, so he always came down. And anyway, by the time he was older, and he said to his son, Wyndham, he said, I've had enough now, I can't do this anymore. So what he did, he got the wind charts, and he said, okay. And he went over to Dublin, and he set off from Dublin, Wyndham, and he crossed from Dublin to Liverpool. He was the first man to cross an expanse of water. And I was talking to an archivist once. I was at a meeting. It wasn't David Owens. And this archivist said, no, it wasn't. It was an Italian. I said, no, it wasn't. It was James. It was Wyndham's saddler. I argued with him. And I wasn't being biased or anything. If it was an Italian or it could have been anybody, I just said, yeah, great. But it wasn't. It was Wyndham Sadler, the first man to cross an expanse of water from Dublin to Liverpool in April 1870.
Yeah. When did you realise that, Frank? As a kid, that was pretty much that area was your playground. But when you started to study history, is it your point where you thought, wow, that's...
Yeah, well, I looked up Wyndham Sadlers. I looked up the Sadlers, because I wanted to do... I like people who... I'm not saying invent things or... like daredevils. Like the Americans, for example. The pioneers who went westward from the east. They were very brave people. Very brave people. Because they were more or less explorers. I love exploration. I really do. That's why I'm an avid follower of space travel.
Yeah.
It's exploration. It's the exploration of, the stars, we might as well say, other dimensions. So I've always looked at these particular people, these explorers. Incredible people,
Yeah.
So I looked up Wyndham Sadler, and when I found out that he was killed on the Lancashire moors near Blackburn in 1823, I found out where he was buried, and that's where he was buried.
Yeah.
That's where he was buried, in that church there, St Anne's Church, which was next to Cherry Gardens, where we used to play football. So he was buried there. I couldn't believe it. And there's me, playing football, and I could have been playing on his, his grave.
That's an astonishing feature of life, our life, and you've opened mine and Ailene's eyes to this. Is that when we walk around and we see this stuff, it's like there's so much history under our feet, over the hill, over the wall, and Liverpool is wall to wall with it. But something as poignant as that is right. Wow.
It is, and as I said, this has got wonderful history all around here. Obviously, the neoclassical buildings, what's there here right now is the Sessions House, beautiful building, neoclassical, just like these here, the St. George's Hall. Then we have the Walker Gallery, which is absolutely fantastic. The Walker Gallery. And it's actually filmed in a new film called Fountain of Youth. It's a brand new film out, and it's a cracking film, The Fountain of Youth. And I've been recommending people to watch it. It's brilliant. And yet, some parts of it was filmed all around here. How about that? Fantastic, I was absolutely, I didn't know really, I just put it on because I like the stars in it. And, this Liverpool, even the Walker Gallery inside there, was filmed as well. So I was absolutely delighted.
That's still got a lot of the original kind of artistic statues and items that came from
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah,
Still,
I love the Walker Gallery.
yeah,
I had Tom from a very young age.
yeah,
Me and my little mate was at school together, and we used to bunk off school, and we used to go into the library here. You know where the library became. It's
yeah,
just there now, and I used to read up about the likes of Admiral Nelson, Horatio Nelson. I used to read up about him. Wow, Montgomery, Julius Caesar,
yeah,
Napoleon. You know,
yeah,
I used to read all about these, so I was very interested as a young boy. You know, very young boy. I loved history. I loved reading about these iconic people, these heroes, if you like, and you find out about them. That's why I like looking at people, characters, different characters
yeah.
of not just of Liverpool, you know, but other cities, other countries.
Because
They're
each,
unbelievable people. Dino said there before, you know, we look at Russia as an enemy, yet, you know, one of the greatest leaders who saved us from the Second World War was a Soviet general, field marshal, and his name was Zhukov, and he got to Berlin first, you know. So there's people like him who I look up to, just like I look up to Horatio Nelson and Lord Montgomery. You
yeah,
know, I do look up to them. Julius Caesar, I look up to him. But one of the greatest of all, well, two of the greatest, I can't split them, of Roman emperors was Vespasian. Vespasian was an incredible man, an incredible man. He came over in the AD 42 Claudian invasion. He was a 20-year-old general. He was an incredible man, and he became emperor. So that was it. And Marcus Aurelius was incredible. All as he wanted was peace, just like Emperor Hadrian. Hadrian just wanted peace when he became emperor in AD 117. He said, you know, enough expansion. Well, why do we want to go on and on and on? So he stopped it. He built walls. He said no further. He didn't only build a wall here. He also built it in Germany, France, and Spain. He said no more. We're going nowhere else. That's enough. Enough's enough. So you know, there's people like them I look up to.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But I want
And
to go. Yeah. Sorry, go on. What was you going to say?
all I was going to say really is that it's just a shame that our education system, when we were at school, didn't evoke any further ideas than bad guy, bad guy, bad guy. It's like the old movies, cowboy movies.
Yeah.
All the good guys wore a white hat, all the bad guys wore a black hat, and the Indians were always bad. And so we believed that because we weren't taught anything remotely else. And when you multiply that across the world, how incredibly bad for our mutual intelligence across the world to say blatantly, they're the bad guys, they're the good guys. And I heard your leading talk tonight, and it's like we accept. Unfortunately, that's what we do as human beings. We accept when someone says they're the bad guys. You know.
No, we're told to accept it. We're
Yeah.
told if they say, you know, these people are bad, you know, are they bad? And that's why you've got to look into things. I've
Yes.
always, from the age of studying, especially at university, I've always broken down the barriers of propaganda.
Yeah.
And there's been terrible propaganda, against other countries. And as Dino said there, you've only got to look at, say, James Bond, for example. The main culprits in James Bond are the Russians. The Russians, they're always, and even today, it's the Russians. Now there's a new enemy, and the new enemy is, besides Russia, is China. So you'll be having films about Chinese. You'll have films about Iran. You'll have the other part of the axis of evil is North Korea.
Yeah.
They just look at these people and go, they're the enemy, and expect everybody to follow America, which we do, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which we do. No North Korean has done any harm to me. No Russian has done any harm to me.
No.
No Iranian has done any harm to me. No Chinese has done any harm to me. But I know why the Americans are getting at the Chinese, and it's simply because it's an economic war, because of the technology that's coming out of China is immense.
Yeah.
Is immense. And that's and they're just picking on Taiwan. What's America got to do with the South China Seas? That's what I'm saying. What's America got to do with Ukraine?
Wow.
That's what I'm saying. Well, what have they got to do with that? What have they got to do with Greenland?
No. It's
They
insane.
want to take Greenland. They want to take Canada. They want to take everybody there. They want to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Well, this is Trump. He's just flipped it. Anyway, I'll have to say hello to these people. Red Bear. Hello, Frank and Mr. Hampton.
Oh, good evening, Red.
And there's my sponsor of the show, Andy Gamble. Evening all. Hope you're all keeping well, Frank, and our boy Wonder. But do you see this fella? He's in a band.
Yeah.
Searching. Wow,
yeah.
Close your ears. I mean your eyes, not your ears. Close your eyes. And the Searchers are playing when these lads play.
Yeah.
And they're big in, funny enough, they're big in Germany. They're big in Germany. And he owns the wonderful Gap Painting Services, and special discounts for our NHS workers. Special discounts for the elderly. Don't struggle, get the lads in. All the description, all of the information that you need for Gap, which we'll be doing at the end of the show, is in the description. Everything. There it is. There, look. Jason's home.
Yeah.
Jason's. So look, people, look, the Gap Painting Services, honestly, you've got to get them in. It's as simple as that, simply because don't struggle. Please don't struggle. Get these lads in. Great discounts. Even if you don't fit into the categories of working for the NHS or being an elderly person, they're very reasonable, honestly, to get them in. Rather than struggle, get them in. They do a fantastic job, fully time served, fully insured, just in case, they break up, it'll be replaced for it. They're fully insured. And you're just left with a beautiful home, wherever you want to. The Abdul Rahim. Hi, how are you? Like, comment, share, subscribe. You'll never walk alone, says Abdul Rahim.
Nice one, Abdul. Yeah.
That is, isn't it, really? Oh, blimey, I don't know how many here. Keith Reedy, Jerry Gardens, 19 Violent. I was in it with David McCallum and Stanley Baker and Anne Haywood. I was up with, we were only kids, you know what I mean? You see me standing by the swings. We did have swings in Jerry Gardens. Anyway, we were little kids, and we seen this Anne Haywood, you know, this beautiful. Me and a lad named John Kelly, little mate, and I said to him, oh, look at her. Would you think she'd be our mum? We wanted Anne Haywood to be our mum. These are little kids, you know. You can imagine a little mad kid, two little mad kids saying, yeah. Good shout out, Keith. Brian, good evening, Frank, mate. How's things? Good to see you, Anthony. Do you mind me listening in? No, of course not, honestly. Behave, no. Johan, Wyndham is such an appropriate name for a balloon. You're right there. But it's a W-Y. It's a W-Y, that's how you spell it. And he did blow up his balloons, you know. No pumps in those days. Barry Elders, good evening, one and all. Hope everyone is well. Thank you, Barry. Yes.
Good evening, Cal.
Redbirds, you've seen Weird Story. He's basically confirmed himself a red. That's our Callum thing is, I was going to say, have we signed anybody yet besides Frimpong? The Anfield, oh, good evening, champions. Oh, thank you, mate. And the Anfield. Frankie and Anthony, good evening, you fine fellows. Now let's get. Look, they're letting on, look, you know, see, we were all worried, we still are, about the Scottish pair. All right, lad, good to see you. That's lovely. Toscana. Spot on, Anthony. Really bad guy, good guy. We have to do our own research, but you have to be one of the mindset that you don't just believe what you're told.
Absolutely. And shockingly enough, there's so many that do.
I know, and when you try to convince them, oh, yeah, it was terrible. Don't know about it now, like, you know, I was trying to say about this SMO to him. He said, but, you know, they shouldn't do that. I said, would you allow, you know, people, Russian culture people in Ukraine, the Russian-speaking people, to be bombarded with shells and missiles? And I always forget this fella's name who first took over after the coup d'etat. He said, our children in Kiev, school children in Kiev, will be sitting there at their desks, while the children, school children in the Donbass area, will be hiding in cellars. That was shocking what he came up with. That's the kind of regime. You've only got to look at today. You know, they went, and, as I mentioned before, you know, they took out 4 planes, but they up to 9 planes they took out, but only 3 were damaged badly. So anyway, that's by the by. And they're all great, you know, it was a great achievement by the Ukrainians. See what they can do. They can go into Russia and well. Very clever how they did it, by the way. But it wasn't the Ukrainians, it was NATO. The Ukrainians haven't got the capability to do anything like that. But what they did was shocking. When they went and they bombed 2 bridges, railway bridges, that had nothing at all to do with any military or anything, just civilians. And they bombed the bridges and killed civilians. It's just, that was terrorism on a big scale. Darryl, Francolini, Antolini, and Berolini. Oh, yeah, Terrell. Cheers. Good to see you, mate. Yanfield. Frankie, don't lie in the Ming Dynasty restaurant to give you a there, lad. Don't dine. I love Chinese food, along with Italian food.
Me too, yeah. Yeah.
You're right there, Johan. What Muhammad Ali said, Ali said, man, I ain't not got no quarrel with them Viet Cong. America had no quarrel with them. And when people talk about great films, one of the most horriblest lines ever to come out of any film was in Apocalypse Now. When Robert Duvall was playing an American colonel dressed up. He always had the big cavalry hat on.
Yeah.
And came out, with his yellow skirt and went like that. And behind it was a great scene, actually. Behind him, you see these things going on and these explosions. And he said, there's nothing better than the smell of napalm first thing in the morning. And you see the napalm going up behind him. That was a terrible, terrible line. The bomb itself was awful, the napalm. Burned people alive. And that's what the Americans did. And that's why Ali was castigated. He was very lucky that he didn't go to jail for a very, very, very long time. If it would have been anybody else, they'd still be in prison. Brian, Asian technology is unreal, Frank. I had a friend who walked about for years with one shoelace tied. I asked, why do you do that? He says, Taiwan under the... Frank Adrian never fancied the fierce Caledonians and the Picts. Lake Island, or Hibernia, as a call, was never profitable enough to justify invasions, says George Seth. Well, you had later, didn't you? You had the Antonine War, because he just wanted to build a wall, like Adrian. To be honest, they were afraid of nobody, honestly. The Romans took on everybody and defeated them. Frank, is Mount Pleasant Road on that map? They used to stay at the Feathers. Oh, yeah. Hotel, late 80s, early 90s. Remember the cracking Chinese at the bottom of the street? Yes. Yes. Still there. I just want to go onto the map if you don't mind, because it's very important for me. It is anyway. So, as I said, I think, where am I? Yeah, Little Italy. Little Italy. You had the church, Wyndham Sadler, he was buried there. An incredible man. Really incredible. And when you go further down, and you've got St. Nick's Church there.
Yeah.
Right. So, what you had also here, now, this is the George Basin, right? And there where you have the Liver building, the Cunard building, and the Port of Liverpool building on this dock here, right? They filled it in and built those three iconic buildings. Point is, what I'm going to say is, see this here. Before I go on to that, that's the Gori Piazza, the Gorrie Piazza, that is. But I want to talk about that in a moment or two. Because here, can I go in any further? Yeah. Here, that was the very first Bank of England in the provinces.
Wow.
And it was built by, the architect was Sir Professor Sir Charles Cockerell. Now, Cockerell, businessmen went up to him and said, listen, we're fed up with going down to Threadneedle Street, the Bank of England. Is there any way you can design us a building? And he said, yeah. And he designed, as I said, the first Bank of England outside the provinces. Outside London, the first in the provinces was this, and it's still there today. Because there's the town hall, as you know. But obviously, this is Castle Street.
Yeah.
Dale Street. Incredible. It really is incredible. This particular building, and still there today. I don't know what it is. I haven't been inside. Go on.
It's a restaurant. It's a restaurant, the Ivy.
I didn't know. I'm being honest because, as you know, I can't get out much now.
No, I've not been in it myself, but yeah.
Okay, well, this the Gorrie Piazza, and when these were built, around 1797, this is where the myth comes into the fore with the Gorrie, because there was a Gorrie in East Senegal, and I think it was named after the East Senegal Gorrie, but that was a fortress. It was a fortress in East Senegal, and that's where they kept all the slaves. So through time and Chinese whispers, with there was slavers, in the Gorrie. All slaves are tied up in the Gorrie. And it just spread to here, with older sailors as time went on when this particular Gorrie was built. And people just said, oh, was the slaves there? Oh, no, yeah. Slaves in the Gorrie Piazza. But forgetting about the Gorrie in East Senegal, where they were kept. So this particular Gorrie Piazza became synonymous with slaves, which was absolutely untrue. Absolutely untrue. So that's one of the things. And this one, I love this one. Do you see that there?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what that was? So I'll tell you what it was. Now, where's the landing stage,
Yeah.
It's the landing stage. Incredible piece of engineering, the landing stage. Incredible piece. But this here was a public baths.
Wow. Okay.
And look at it, so beautiful. And one of our great architects designed it, and that was John Foster Sr. Now, John Foster Sr. designed some wonderful things. He really did. He designed, if I might go up again, he designed this, and it was exchange flags right behind the town hall.
Oh, yes.
He designed that. And if we had a picture of it, I'll show you the picture of the original.
Yeah.
Which was this.
I know you've shown it before, and it's absolutely
incredible. And we pulled it down in 1954. 1954. There was arches, there was friezes, there was statues. Beautiful, beautiful. And they pulled it down. This is the criminality of city planners
Yeah.
and the idiots who support. Absolutely.
We were well and truly to the age of Formica.
Well, there you go. There you go. And this was the site of the castle,
Yeah.
right around there. The site of this, what's behind me. And, preservationists in 1723 were saying, don't knock it down. Please don't knock it down. And they said, oh, no, we want to build a church. You say, what for? This is the first building, real first building in Liverpool. No, we want to pull it down. And so they pulled our castle down, albeit that the foundations are still there of the castle. But this church, St. George's Church, a fella came in, John Foster Jr., and he strengthened it 100 years after it was built. And unfortunately, he pulled that down to make way for Victoria's monument that you see today, top of Lord Street. And I don't want to talk about that.
It just breaks your heart.
It does, and there, that's St. Peter's Church, and that was built in 1701.
Yeah.
So that became the provincial cathedral when we got our city status in 1880. Finally got the city status. Why well, it was just jealousy why we didn't get it a lot sooner. And we had to get it one way or the other. And in 1880, so he says, you'll have to build a cathedral. Yeah, we'll build one. We won't build you one, we'll build you two. So this became the pro-cathedral for the Anglicans, St. Peter's Church. So when it was being built, the cathedral, and it wasn't even a third built, they decided in 1923 to pull this down. Now that was significant, that particular building, very significant. And over there, but that was the old Marks and Spencers that we used to go into, to buy our groceries or buy a pullover or something, right there.
Yeah.
Now it's moved, hasn't it? It's gone, unfortunately, Marx's. But that particular Compton Hotel it became was unique because it became the very first hotel cum department store. I'm talking exclusive department store. And they always forget the name of this one in Paris, and they always tried to claim that that was the first in the world, and it wasn't. We opened up 6 months before that particular one in Paris. So, the history of Liverpool is unique in every aspect.
Absolutely. Well, the architecture to have the history.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you look at the likes of this, as I mentioned about how can I put it? The first baths.
Yeah.
The first baths but it wasn't for the likes of you and I, to be honest. It was for the business acumen, the business people. And they used it. Beautiful architecture. I've got proper pictures, actually. But that's the way it is. That's the way it is. And this is all the dock. that there today is the pump house, believe it or not. That's the pump house. That's the salt house, or is that the salt house?
Yeah.
I don't know what one's what. Yeah, I think that's the salt house dock. You've got now, which is here. You've got the Albert dock. It is incredible. Another piece of engineering by a Yorkshireman,
Yeah.
Jesse Hartley. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Look at that. Look at that. And that bridge is still there, you know. See that little bridge?
Yeah.
That's still there. The Albert Dock. Look at it. The engineering. The engineering is incredible. And where you've got this, just look at the size of this. That was the 5th custom house.
Yeah.
The 5th custom house. Size of it, look.
Oh.
Much bigger than, a lot bigger, might I add, than St. George's Hall. You could fit 2 St. George's Halls there, no problem. And there's the Sailor's Home right there.
That looks absolutely amazing there, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Now just imagine, unfortunately, just imagine if they'd still be there today. Imagine that.
That's the problem. We could imagine them still being there, and they'd be just tremendous. I was thinking when you were talking a while back at the various buildings, it's almost impossible for us to imagine something worthy or someone worthy to house these buildings now.
Yeah.
We've got a nation of quick book salesmen, just get in, get out, and
that's all it is. And you've got the builders get in and get out. You look at the materials that was actually put on those particular buildings. Incredible. You've only got to look at London and what they preserved. Beautiful. But these were the same. This here, the 5th Custom House, John Foster Jr., 1828, that was. Unbelievable building. Same stone and same colour as St. George's Hall. Beautiful. Right? Imagine that there today facing here, the Albert Dock. Incredible. Then this particular, John Cunningham designed this. A fellow named John Cunningham, the Sailor's Home. Imagine that today. That could have easily have become a hotel, but they knocked it down in 1974 and built nothing on the site. They just pulled it down and left it. This came down after the war, and preservationists were saying, don't pull it down, because an incendiary during the May Blitz went right through the dome there, and it destroyed, not destroyed, it gutted 2/3 of it. And it could have easily have been saved because it was only like waterlogged after all the water that went in to put the fires out. Everything else was all right. And it's shocking why they pulled it down. Preservationists were saying, but then again, you hear that obviously once you delve into why they pulled it down was because of sheer corruption. Because the Americans admired this. Don't forget, Americans have been coming here for years, not just through the war, but for years, sailors and businessmen and whatever. Even Mark Twain came and he visited all down there, and he mentioned this particular building himself. he said, what a magnificent building. And he mentioned, obviously, in America. So obviously Americans came over, especially American architects as well. They were coming over during the latter part, well, the middle part and latter part of the 19th century, the 1800s, and they'd seen this. They'd seen this as they were looking at, buildings. So what the Americans did, they said, we'll buy that off you. So they were taking the brick by brick, but it was taking too long. And they were putting some of the bricks up in Anfield Cemetery. They were putting it there, storing it there, and letting the Americans take it from there. Unfortunately, that was the end. I'm going to have a break now. I'll just carry on. Can I get to you, Ken? Yeah, little mate. Because Aidan, Frank and Anthony, and all lovely crew. And all the lovely crew.
Good evening, Karen.
And Robert Jones agrees with me. Absolutely spot on, Frank. The hypocrisy of NATO is breathtaking. Wooden Cocoa. Oh, Christopher. Hi, Frank and Anthony and everyone. Hiya, Christopher. Frank, looking at the ships and the great engineer reminds me, didn't you say you would do a show? Yeah, I will. I promise you there, George. Definitely Isabel Kingdom Brunel. Great man, great engineer. There's a train, or well, an engine, an engine, steam engine up in York. Museum, Railway Museum. Oh, you want to see it? It's absolutely amazing. But the gauge is too wide and it could never be used because it was cost millions to change the gauge of the lines that was already around the country, well, most of the country. So they never used it. And it's there. It's an incredible piece of engineering. This massive, wonderful. And I'll get pictures as well of it. Really will. So anyway, Anthony, I'm going for a break. Jason's still.
Okay, Frank, I'm with you.
Here we are in Castle Street, and people every single day walk past this little gem. The British Maritime Insurance Building was built by George Grayson in 1882, and what's depicted on it is not only the maritime sailing ships, but also the very first steamship that sailed out of Liverpool, which was Isambard Kingdom Brunel's Great Eastern. Incidentally, how many of the 45,000 people that pack Liverpool Football Club every home game know that the mast that's on the Kop end is actually the mast from the Great Eastern? The mosaic frieze on the building depicts from 1207 the sailing ships right up to the first steamship, which was Great Eastern. For well over 100 years in the business quarter of the city, it still goes unnoticed by the passerby. We've taken the short journey from the man in the pyramid to the man in the tunnels, the mole of Edge Hill. After the Napoleonic Wars of 1815, there were many British soldiers unemployed. Also, there were French prisoners of war who were incarcerated in Liverpool and needed to get back home, but unfortunately, they had no money. One man came to their rescue. This man, Joseph Williamson, the mole of Edge Hill. You've all heard of a money pit. This is the ultimate money pit. The French and British soldiers who were once bitter enemies were now working side by side. What was the purpose of these tunnels? Was it for canals? Was it for the railway system? Were they for drainage? No. They were plain follies. After 200 years, the pick marks are still visible today after all the hard work by the soldiers just to get back to France. Joseph loved his wife that much that he had a tunnel specially dug from his house in Mason Street up to the church in St Mary's, so that if it rained, she wouldn't get wet. And it became the most expensive umbrella in the world. Joseph Williamson spent the equivalent of £26 million of his own money so that soldiers could go back home to France and so that he could live underground just like the mole. We've just been in an enclosed space, but you don't realise the vastness of the tunnels. Just have a look at this. His tunnels did set the precedent for the forthcoming railway system when the engineers used his idea of tunnels to get from A to B. The tunnels are still being excavated even today, and some of the finds have been extraordinary. The likes of crockery like this, wonderful old bottles like this, but one of the finds is this. Just take a look at it. And it's an old kiddie's car. It could even be yours. And looking at it, I think it's run out of its MOT. The myth surrounding Joseph Williamson digging all the tunnels around Liverpool is a myth, because Joseph Williamson dug the tunnels here in Edge Hill where he lived, and only here.
I didn't
absolutely.
know what he's showing. I don't know what he's showing, you know.
You know what? That's the magic of Jason, though, isn't it? George puts the last line. George puts up that. Oh, remember you said you were going to do this, Frank?
Exactly. Exactly, Brunel and bang, you know.
That's a
They're
brilliant piece.
the greatest.
That take me out of it.
Oh, look at that.
And it's
Karen.
fantastic.
My God, Frank, how old are you in the vid? Looking very dapper. However, you still got it, Frank. How apt to show us the Williamson's tunnels. They are now having to try to raise funds to keep them open to the public. It
Oh,
just shows you, doesn't it, really, that, you know, how, uh, you know, to blame the council. You
yeah.
can't blame the council because every council up and down the country is starved of funds. And this is why I keep harping on about Ukraine, because we're sending billions out to Ukraine, while the likes of we're now going on about can you keep the Williamson's tunnels open to the public, and they should be kept open because they're very historical. It's a part of our heritage. It's a
Yeah.
part of national heritage, part of Wales heritage.
Yeah.
Because, as I mentioned in the video there, that they set the tunnels. They were wondering how to get around. You know, when the railways came about, we started the railways here in Liverpool, by the way, first passenger railway system. And when everybody else, you know, oh, we'll have a go at that, you know, in America, and you know, in other countries around the world, they was wondering how to get around hills and mountains and whatever. And this fella, told me who it was, says, have a look at these. So they came up to Liverpool, a posse of them, and went, look at these, we can build these. Trains can go through anything. And that's how they set the precedent for every tunnel throughout the world. And yet, we're stopping the public from seeing these wonderful things, this heritage, Wales heritage. I think it's Wales heritage myself, not just Liverpool heritage
No.
or national heritage. And that's the sad indictment. And as Karen says there, you know, they are now having to try to raise funds. But we're being starved for money by the government. We've always have been starved of money, especially Liverpool. I'm not just saying that, I'm not being biased, but Liverpool has always been targeted for their funding. Always.
You,
Right
you,
through the years.
you would hope that someone as wonderful as National Trust would get involved, wouldn't you? But I guess it's
Stunning clip, that, lads, as Brian says. Stunning clip.
yeah,
Karen, well done, Jason.
yeah.
Frank, is there any of the tram lines left in the streets anywhere? Yeah, there are, but they're covered. They're covered.
Woodside,
It's and over in Woodside, they've still got a tram running, haven't they? You know, an old tram.
still there, yeah. They used to do like a one day or a weekend a year, and they'd open the tram sheds and they'd open the lines and stuff. I don't know if they still do that now, because Birkenhead Council are obviously facing the same boat as you just described with Liverpool. So it's
Well, look, you know, we should have plaques up for people, great people,
yeah,
but we can't afford them.
yeah.
We can't afford them. You know, I don't know. There should be a statue for, in my opinion, just my Noel Shavas. You know, the surgeon from the Royal Southern Hospital who won two, not one, but two wonderful as you know, these Victoria Crosses.
Absolutely. And we did have the wonderful piece of work by Tom Murphy, our friend, to celebrate Noel.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the set. I always remember that.
Yeah.
I always remember that. I got him the commission. Did you know that? Tom Murphy, I got him the commission.
Only when you told me, yeah.
And I wasn't even invited for the unveiling. I started the campaign off because he was a great hero. Excuse me. Anyone who's a great hero of mine, I tell them about it. I tell them about it. I really do. Mary Bambi. Now we're doing next week. Is it next week? Definitely next week. We'll be doing the characters.
Okay.
You know, so there's ladies out there who should be brought to the fore.
Yes.
Now the likes of Noel Shabazz, I wanted them. I said put them down and put them down. Not in. People said to me at the time about the statue. Put him in St. James's Cemetery. I said no, because it's hollow ground. It'll just collapse underneath after a while. I said put him in town, put him in Shabazz Park.
Yeah.
But it's named after, it's named after his dad, the first Anglican bishop. I said put it there. Now, so where they put it, it's only temporary there. It's up by Abercrombie Square, in Abercrombie Square, which is absolutely useless. No one sees it.
Yeah.
Only no disrespect to students. I was one myself, but they're the only ones who see it, and it's got all the other Victoria Cross holders' name on.
Yeah.
On the plinth, but
it would be wonderful, as you mentioned it, to have a gardens where our military heroes are remembered.
Well, why not? Which would be perfect for me. Why not? Right next to the cenotaph on St. George's Plateau. Why can't they put it there?
Yeah. Too many things on horses.
Ridiculous. And Karen says, Defo Wales Heritage, Frank. Dr. Tunnels, yes. Ed Bears, I love smoky bacon. So do I. Carol says, what are they doing with the money they are charging visitors to our city? I think it's called a tourist tax. Surely this money could be used to plough back into our heritage sites.
Should be. That's where it should go, yeah.
So, Red Bear, there's the bacon, a 40-day bacon left. But anyway, let's get back to this. Yeah, it's rather sad to think. I'll go back to this, to be honest, Anthony, because we sound like we'll go back to the likes of this, and that particular building, as I said, it's the Sailors' Home. Now, 1841, John Cunningham designed it. It was built, and it was where sailors from all over the world, even our own sailors, stayed. Then when wars broke out, as usual, for example, the Crimean War, you're talking 1854. 1850. That's where soldiers mobilized and sailors and sailed from there. The Indian Wars, the Punjabi Wars, that's where the sailors went from. when both World Wars broke out, that's where soldiers and sailors and Air Force people and everybody else that was in the armed forces stayed. Both World Wars, 2 World Wars, World War One, World War Two. Problem is, besides it being knocked down and nothing built on it from 1974 onwards until Liverpool 1 came along, it really annoys me, to be honest, because I don't like talking about it. And people, soldiers, sailors, Air Force, you name them, armed forces, went through those gates and never came back. Never ever came back. No matter where they came from, whether they were from Liverpool, whether they were from Manchester, whether they were from Scotland, America, New Zealand, Australia, everywhere, all around the world during these 2 World Wars, went in there and never came back. Never came back. So me and a lad named Phil Griffiths from over the water, he got in touch with me and said, the gates? I said, yeah. He said, from, the Sailors' Home? I said, I certainly do know the Sailors' Home. He said, they've been found. I said, where are they? Anyway, Phil and I fought. They were down in the Midlands on a wall. It was just a wall leading into a factory that were never used anyway. That were never ever used. And we were fighting for them. And our local government at the time said, oh, we can build replicas. I said, don't build replicas. Replicas? Are you having a laugh? They said, well, we don't want to upset it. I said, there are fucking gates. They're ours. They belong to Liverpool. Lads were going out of them gates, most probably rubbing them for luck and not coming back. Some did come back, but lots didn't, in lots of wars. And you're wanting to put a replica there. Are you having a laugh? Anyway, we had a meeting after meeting. So we fought for them. And Phil and I, we were in touch with them. And they said, okay, you can have them, but you'll have to pay your own transport. I said, okay. We got hold of the council, so we've got them. So anyway, everybody, these people who had never had a fucking clue they were, started jumping on the bandwagon. I was saying, who are you? Who are you? Well, we're... So I had a big argument with them. I said, I don't even know you people. I said, we've got them back. They're on their way back. What have you done? Was you just waiting to see? Not one of you came forward and said, hey, can I help? Not one of you. So anyway, I walked away from it. And when they unveiled them, I did a DVD, with the gates. One of the DVDs. I did the gates. And I wasn't invited to the unveiling, just like I wasn't invited to the unveiling of the campaign I started and got Tom Murphy the commission to do the statue. Wasn't even invited because I had an argument with them, because my partner at the time, she used to bring me down there to these meetings twice a week, over the statue, being made and getting some there and whatever. So we used to go down twice a week, and I lived miles away from them. And Chris used to bring me down there without any problem. And she used to just sit like right in the background. Wasn't at the table or anything, right in the background. She used to just sit and wait for me. And one of them went like that. Can't she sit downstairs? I said, because it was overhead in a pub where the meeting was.
Yeah.
And I said, no, she doesn't drink. I said, by the way, I said, she's driving me home. And I'm not having her sitting down on her own. It's a pub, fellas walking in that. I said, well, and I said, what are you trying to say? You trying to bar her from coming? He said, well, can she sit in the car? Now, everything was in place for Tom to do this. I started the campaign. I was on the radio just explaining about this great man, Noel Shabazz, and how we should remember him. There should be a statue for him. And a relative of Tom Murphy got hold of me, rang me up. He said, listen, I hope you don't mind. I said, what? He said, would you be willing to meet Tom Murphy? I said, what for? He said, he wants to meet with you. I said, yeah, sure. So we met Tom, and we went and had a cup of tea. And he said, what kind of a statue do you want? You want a statue? I said, yeah. So anyway, these other fellas who I was in touch with, I introduced Tom to them. These are the same people who said, can she sit in the down in the pub or in a car? Now, as I said, everything was in place. Tom was to do the airtime. Everything was in place for that statue. I led the campaign. No one had ever heard of him. Even these like fucking ex-soldiers. They're older men now. They jumped on the bandwagon. I always say they jumped on the bandwagon. They never helped once saying, highlighting Noel Shabazz. They just bang there. As soon as Tom says, yeah, I'll do that statue, they just went, came. I went like, this is great, this, So anyway, when they said no, well, can she sit in the car? I just said, I stood up. And you can imagine what I said. You can imagine what I said to them without lots of expletives.
Oh, I can imagine. Big time. The problem is that these little people with big ideals of their own importance, they're unfortunately in the majority. And the good folk who will say, that's a cracking idea, Frank. We'll make it. We'll get through there. Get it done. Keep you in touch. They are in the minority, and they don't have a vote.
It's so sad, So I just got up, give them my peace of mind.
Yeah.
And just said, F you, and walked out. Said to Chris, come on, let's go. And she said, you started, in the car. She said, you started all this. You are me. I said, leave it. Let them fucking carry on. Let them carry on. And I've seen Tom since then. Tom had nothing to do with it, you know what I mean? I think Tom was more surprised than anybody. And he promised me, do you know the John Lennon he did? He promised me one of them. I'm still fucking waiting for it. For getting the commission. See what I mean? It's things like that. And while I'm promised there, I just got to say, I don't know who won this. Can I just bring ourselves on? Got to show this. Right. What I'm going to do, all you football fans, I won't be doing any more football, by the way. But you football fans, I know yous all. I'm going to write all the names down. The likes of, I can't write you down, Johan. I'm sorry, you're a Manchester United fan. And Redbird, the likes of Redbird, the likes of Edward, Christopher, they're all Liverpool fans. The Anfield Road, they're all Liverpool fans. And others, you know, I'll be putting the names, I'm writing the name out individually, all the names, every name that used to come on my football show. I'm putting them in a hat, and I'm going to pull a name out. You know, it'll be like this. I'll just pull it out, give it a little ruffle, and just pull it out. I'll even show the names that I'm not cheating. You know what I mean? Fold them back and get them a shake, pull one out, and whoever name I pull out has won this wonderful program with Mo Salah's autograph, proper autograph there. And it's from 2019 European Cup final in Atletico Madrid. 1-2-0. Mo Salah, the first scorer, and he's got his autograph there. So that's how I'm going to do it. And that's it.
That's brilliant and fair.
It is fair, isn't it? There's no other way I could do it.
No.
There's no other way. Then he can come and collect it off me.
And there's only so many pints we can drink after the lads, God bless them.
I know. But, you know, they're all good people, to be honest.
They are all boys and girls, all fantastic.
Yes. And, you know, like, this particular place here, with all that gone, that's Shabazz Park today. And they could easily put the statue of Shabazz, Noel Shabazz there.
Well, maybe that sounds ideal. I actually got a statue in there, one that I didn't carve or sculpt, but I designed, and an ironmonger worked with me and put it in there, which was a tribute to the gentleman who worked for the company Grosvenor, who designed that plot. They called him the gardener, and sadly he died young. So there's something in the middle of the gardens to him, which is basically an open gate. I see the way when we pass, when we go, it's like we're not anywhere other than close by. No, so an open gate is the one. But that would be absolutely the finest place for it. Yeah. And not just that, but other ones. Yeah. And so people can see the magnificence of the city. You're right in the spot. You're overlooking the Albert Dock, and then walk through half a dozen.
Exactly, because not many tourists go up to Abercrombie Square, albeit Abercrombie Square is very, very famous, you know, historically, because I've had my students there, I've had other, you know, groups of people, especially when I've done a coach tour, and we always stop in Abercrombie Square, because in Abercrombie Square, what's there was the very first Confederate consul in Abercrombie Square, the very first. And, you know, number 19, I've done it, it's on one of my DVDs about it. And you had the likes of Augustus John, and he was sitting, you know, the latter part of the 19th century, he's sitting there and he's looking up at a ceiling. Now, don't forget, in those days, they smoked cigars, cigarettes, pipes, everything. So the ceiling was black, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And he's sitting there and he's looking up at the ceiling. and he sees a little, like a couple of colours, and he looks, and he's looking more intently. Then he asks for a ladder, so he gets a ladder out. They bring him a ladder, and he gets his handkerchief, and he's like this on the ceiling, and he sees these colours. One was a red colour and one was a blue colour. So he got more, and he went. And what he uncovered, not there and then, but the ceiling was cleaned, and what he uncovered was a magnificent mural on the ceiling. And that mural was the Confederate Army, was the Confederate consul. Sitting at a table. Now the table, when you look at it, is it replicates the Southern lady's parasol. You see them, don't you, in the old pictures and whatever, with a parasol because of the heat, to keep the heat off them. And so the tablecloth is that, sitting around the table. But they're dressed. They are actually dressed in Greek togas. And you've got little cherubs, like Bacchus, the god of wine, and giving them wine. Because what they said, the ignorance, I think, of the North, by calling them imbeciles, to say, no, we're as intelligent, if not more than you. We are Southern gentlemen. And this is why they put this up as, a Greek theme. A Greek theme with the little god of wine, Bacchus. You see, so that was all uncovered. And that was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And that's, as it says it's very historical, is Abercrombie Square, because also what you've got, there was never any college of sorts or school of thought for architecture. So you've got, on one end of this particular row, a beautiful houses, whatever they are, apart. I don't know what they fucking are. So you've got where the consul was, and it also became, believe it or not, the very first family home of the second Anglican bishop, Francis Chavasse, and that's where the Chavasse family grew up. Noel Chavasse, the double BC. Yeah. And on one end, the other end of the terrace, you've got the very first school of architecture, where some of our great architects studied.
Absolutely. Wow.
Because back in the day, Anthony, their fathers, like I always mention John Foster Sr. and Jr., and he learns him, his son, John Foster Sr. learns his son, John, the trade, how to be an architect, how to be a good architect. And as you know, one of our great architects who studies in this particular college in Abercrombie Square, and that was Sir Alfred Waterhouse, another great Liverpool architect. You see, so this is what you're at. This is what you're at. Historical significance. I'll be talking about some architects as well. If you know, let's see what our lads and girls have been saying. The Anfield Roar. They filmed that, Frankie. Those clips are why I and many love you, lad. You're the historian for this city.
Yeah, for the country.
Isn't that lovely? Lads, that map would look really good in a frame. Can you get one with all the buildings numbered and worded below? Yeah,
Complicated business.
I've got one there, which is, I'll show you it one day. I can't get it now because it's
So-
in a pipe. It's in a pipe, and you pull it out and unfold it and go like that.
That would be
Honestly,
a good idea to have it blown up and put on the wall of
yeah.
a restaurant, a cafe, a meeting point. You know, like John's place, top of Bond Street.
Do you know what? Yeah, I gave John some of them. Did you know that?
No,
Oh, yeah.
no.
Yeah, they were mine. Yeah, well, they were photocopied, to be honest. He got them photocopied. So yeah, I might get it, only for the temporary. What I've got there,
Yeah.
I might have it on here instead of the castle for the time.
Yeah.
And I might be able to point out things. See?
Or, printers can do now. You just have it on a disc, and then it'll be a case of how big is the wall, 8 foot by 10 foot or whatever. Blow it up there. Can you imagine sitting there for a cup of tea, bacon butty, and just looking at that? Wow.
Well, I've got us on a disc. What you said about the printers. I've actually got us. I've got Karen's and your paper as well. The paper, the newspaper that I had done. All historical. We got one. I'll show one of you. Oh, let's see. It's the good.
Yeah.
So I've got all these. I've got one to give you, one to the lovely Karen.
Just wonderful.
I will pay. I will. Evening, Frank and Anthony and all the chat. Just got home, so eating me tea and watching quietly. Lovely to see you. Well,
Evening.
he's a smashing fella, A really lovely fella. Unbelievable. He had the Liverpool team on his coach. He was asked to drive them, I said, right. And he's like Jason. Jason's he loved Jason, but he just doesn't like football, as you know. He stayed away from it. And same as Will Page. I just don't like it. There you go. Karen says, I went to the Liverpool Museum on Friday. I was stood in the dock area looking at the overhead railway curtains map. I was like the French Sea of Liverpool. The number of people who asked about the building, Custom House and the Sailors' Home, they couldn't believe that they are no more. I explained where the gates are now, and some of tourists didn't realise they were part of that building. I mentioned your name and how you fought to have those gates. Isn't that lovely?
That's wonderful. Wonderful.
That's
Well done, Karen. That's great. Brilliant. Credit where credit is deserved.
Do you know what? Now, I mentioned that, didn't I? And that's even before, what Karen says there. And I only mentioned how, me and this Phil Griffiths fought to get them back. Thank you, Karen. I knew Frank Torres would show up when he got. So, Have you quit the footy shows, Frank? No, you see, I'm a Liverpool supporter. I love Liverpool Football Club, but I can't be bothered over all this. There's an Irish lad there, Brian. I don't know whether you know. And I always remember him saying about Bellingham, trust me, he's not going there, he's coming, he's never mind Madrid, you know, and all this nonsense. And he told me to F off on a show once, you know, I commented. I said, why should we take notice of you? You're only reading what other people are saying, like these, like Ornstein and Paul Joyce, and you're only reading it. I said, but you're sure that Bellingham's coming in to Liverpool? I said, I think you're wrong. If he was coming here, we'd have paid the money by now. He'd be sitting at Anfield signing a contract. I said, but you're going on and on and on. I said, Real Madrid are after him. And that's the big cue for Anfield, for Liverpool, for FSG to say, oh, okay then. To come in and get him, which they did. Right. So anyway, he told me to F off, that I know nothing about football. And now he's doing the same again with this Bates lad. He's doing exactly the same narrative he was giving Bellingham. Trust me, he's coming here. Trust me, Madrid are not in for him. He won't go to Madrid. That's why I don't bother with other podcasts. And when I do one, is if, you know, might do one this week. I don't know if we sign anyone. We've signed Frimpong, but that's about it. I don't want to go on and saying speculating as usual, like other podcasts. Once I know that they're coming to Anfield on a plane, I'll have a podcast and talk about it. Brian. Frank, it would be hard to include me for you Liverpool fans. I never even considered it. No, you know, I know you didn't, but you wouldn't want Mo Salah's autograph and us winning our 6th European Cup. To be honest, Anfield Road, this is Johan. Frank's stories, the guests and people in this community have made me a staunch United fan. Fell in love with your beautiful city. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
The guests and people in this community have made me a staunch United fan. Fall in love with your beautiful city.
That's beautiful, and you see that coming out time and time again. But what I do not like is this is the Frank Carlyle show. Whether you're on history or football, so it's just respect. And once you cross that line, which that guy has.
This is Karen's husband's cracking fella. Hey Frank, Steve here, Karen's hubby. I always ask him how you know, Steve. Every time I come home from the squash club, I hear your dulcet tones chatting away. I can also, in bed while Karen is catching up on your history chat. We're off to Cyprus soon to visit family, and I'm told by yourself that you'll be joining us. I wish I could. Or do you mean on the events? Yeah, of course. On the podcast. You'll be able to listen to me on the podcast on your laptop, Steve.
We'll mention it again.
Roberto, Johan, you're one of the best devils out there, bro. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, that's lovely. That's great.
The Anfield. No, Frank, why don't you do Frank's transfer show? Call it Frankie looking through the window. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a cracker, that.
Yeah.
You know, the transfer window. That's a
Yeah.
cracker. Oh, lovely. Yanfield, Johan, MUFC. You are a great lad, but please stop buying good players. Okay. I love these. I love this girl. You know, I only believe it when the players is wearing the shirt and it's officially announced by LFC. Otherwise, it's like Chinese whispers. My sentiments. My sentiments. Absolutely. Absolutely. Spot on, Toscan. I agree with you, mate. We know how FSG work. Would think some fans would have learned, but they don't learn. They don't learn. Unfortunately. As I take a slip of it. I just sleepy. King of the Wi-Fi, this fella. Next door's Wi-Fi booster is functioning fabulously, nefariously, secreted in this locked space. He's blissfully unaware of his data consumption. Apparently, his 4 kids have their devices turned off at night. What's he like? What's he like? I'm going to go to our map. I've got to go. Or can I just look at this? Look at that. No, that's the pump house, as you know.
Yeah.
That's all the pump house. And you've got the likes of, don't want to even say what that is. I know what it is. I'm not going to say it. Elephant Pursues an omnibus in Liverpool. That's true, that, you know, because an elephant did it did run down the streets. It's like there's wonderful photographs of Liverpool, and one of them was in. Do you ever remember the message of me? Excuse me. Francine sent me a message, and she must have, rather than. Oh, Snapey says, Vert has confirmed LFC move on Instagram. Right. Snapey says, Vert will be announced in the next 72 hours. Stand on me rednecks. I've got to read this out. And it's from Florian Wirtz. Who says I want the number 10? I respect players. Don't believe everything what's written. So what does that tell you, boys? Would like to hazard a guess. Sorry about this. Yeah, there was a whale in. Do you ever remember in Paradise Street? You had that bus stop thing, didn't you? Like
Yeah.
the big stop.
Yeah.
And there was a whale there in the 1950s. You know, it was on the back of a big lorry, a big, like, I don't know, I think it was like pulling 3 trailers, a big lorry, and the whale was on that. A whale caught in Liverpool Bay. It was 1958, 57, 58. And not many people know this. But then again, when someone was telling me about it and showing me the photograph, I said, well, believe it or not, a fellow by the name of Daniel Brockleby came over in 1774 to Liverpool because he wanted to open up a whaling line. And he did come over and he did open a whaling line. He went to Norwegians who were also involved in whaling, and he got a whaling crew from Norway, and they set sail. And whales, they dragged whales into the maze. You know, they harpooned them, they were fortunately dead. And then where the Everton crest is, that they have on the shirt in Everton, they had a massive, I used to have the photograph, having a clue where it is. Well, the print of whaling bones of whales.
Wow.
And a big arch. See? Now look at that.
Yeah, then and now.
I hate. See that? Why hello? Why hello? I hate that. The screw. What's the fucking point in that? They're not. Where that lady is with the washing, she's a Sally Ann, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not washing, it's wares. She sells wares up to the poor people. But where you've got that facing, you know, behind it,
yeah,
and those ladies crossing over towards neon signs, I showed it last week, absolutely magical, and they fucking pulled it down to make way for that.
Yeah.
Hello.
Absolutely
cool.
Which is absolutely crazy. I know we haven't done it for a long time, but driving by there used to be a nightmare. It's the boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over the Nazi at the Empire.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's Everton Brown.
Wow.
Now I could tell you something. See how clean that street is.
Yeah.
I can't show you this. No, I'm not gonna get into it. It's not the right time. But there is a difference between. I'll say that street. Look how clean it is. To the courts of Scotland Road.
Yeah.
And how filthy they were.
Yeah.
Lots of sectarianism.
Yeah.
Isn't that unbelievable?
That's fantastic.
And that's just a gymnasium. A gymnasium. Now, this is great, because I always try to tell people, have a look at that. Have a guess where that is, Anthony.
I'm looking at the buildings in the background, the pillars. That's not by the walker.
That is the Walker. That is the Walker. Yeah, because where this lady is,
Yeah.
another Sally-Ann, these gates, the St. John's Gardens, because you had railings going all the way round and gates
Yeah.
into St. John's Gardens. And all these lovely railings, all featured. You see the features of the railings there,
Yeah.
of the gates. Well, those features going around, beautiful they were. And the gates closed overnight, so no vagabonds or anything like myself, bunking in. So they used to close all the gates around. There was 4 sets of gates, believe it or not, and they were taken down during the First World War to make bullets, and railings from everywhere were being pulled down, not just there, but all around the country. And it turns out that they were useless. There was no need to take them down. Never ever put back. Yeah, so that is the Sessions House, as you can see at the top, and also the Walker Gallery there. Now, again, that's Netherfield Road. And look at the perambulators, the perambulators. Let's see the ones. See the prams and the kids. Look at the shop full, clean. See how tidy it is, clean.
Yeah.
Just like what I showed you before, how clean it was.
Yeah.
Now that's the facade of the Futurist.
Beautiful.
And yet they pulled it down. I said, why didn't they leave it up as a, going into the new shops or whatever? Why didn't they leave it up? I couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
Just a facade. Just a facade. And they did away with it, haven't they? They did away with it. And that's the southern type.
Yep. Modern times.
There's the bats. You know what I showed you on the map?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, looks like a Roman thing to me.
But it is, it's Roman theme. It's Roman theme. See, the likes of John Foster, that was John Foster Sr. who designed that, by the way. They always did Roman themes because his son, John Foster Jr., if you look at Lime Street Station and you see the arches, it was all Romanesque. And remember when I showed the colonnade going down Lime Street from those arches? Well, everything was Romanesque. Incredible. Incredible. What he designed, John Foster Jr. and Sr.
Wow.
And that's the bats. Beautiful, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember in the late 60s, 70s, there being a block like that at the waterfront with various things in it. One of them was a beefeater restaurant and stuff. That would not have been in that building, would it? That would have been pulled down to make modern crap.
But that was still there, you know, when before they pulled down, or just after. You know, the overhead railway.
Yeah.
That was still there. I'll take it that away. Now look at it closely, right? And watch. And watch. And there it is again. There it is again. See?
Yeah. Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah.
Just like the print, the picture, the painting of it. Well, you know, obviously some things have to become obsolete and it has to come away because you'll have the Liver building, you know, right behind us as we look at it there. The
Yeah.
Liver building's there now. The Liver building. So anyway, Anthony, I'll call it a day. I'll just go through these last. Blimey, where am I? Right, these last few things. Frankie and Anthony, I love this show, though it's my zen on a Tuesday evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Anfield.
And George said, Frank, I tend to be very focused on the different shows and I love the history show, but especially enjoy the films on Saturday. No controversy, just great content, and they're educational. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Always sparks conversation.
And Brian, lads, for FC, quit while we're ahead. Oh, just love it. Frankie and Anthony, I didn't give the update on going with my niece to the gallery. All I'll say is it was great, and I'm going to do more visits to the arts around us. You've got to, Anfield.
That's
You
wonderful.
really have, because you miss out on so much. Liverpool has so much culture.
Just
We have a book by a fellow by the name of Audubon, and it's in our wonderful library on William Brown Street, and it's in the whereabouts is it? I don't know whether it's in the Roscoe rooms. I'm not quite so sure, but it's worth. Last time I was there, it was worth 53 million quid. 53 million. And this Audubon, he painted loads of things, a big book, thick. When he was in America, you know, when he first went over to America, you're talking the 1580s. And he painted all these wonderful animals and birds and brilliant. And I remember David Cameron when he came out, when he was Prime Minister, and he said, I'm going around cities taking out, you know, these things and whatever, and putting them in a museum here in London where they can be admired. And he wanted to take the Audubon book. We wouldn't have had it. And it's fucking ours.
2-1.
So that's what you've got to go and see, Anfield Road, the Audubon book. It's fantastic. Thank me later. Thank me later. You're right there, aren't you? But I remember reading something I'm going back years ago when I was reading this. It was in a history book that a circus came to town and an elephant broke away and it just ran and it terrified people. Done no harm, but could you imagine like a 3-ton animal, one of the toughest animals on the planet, running down the street?
No, clearly not. If you just nipped out for an echo. What the?
Or a loaf or a bottle of milk. Go get a loaf. All right, I'll bring a bottle of milk back as well. See that fucking thing running right?
Or just walked out to the magic clock. That's it, me done with whiskey.
They don't make them like they used to, Frankie. Same can be said for Frankie and Anthony City Treasures, the pair of you. Not lovely.
Oh.
It should have been made law not to tear down any of these great buildings, all of the work to build them, and they bloody took them away from future generations.
Yeah, there's a definite logic to that, and I totally agree with that. But when you some of the stuff you hear is valid and some isn't. You know, some of the buildings aren't looked after, and they do collapse. And others really, it suits someone to have them gone.
Absolutely, and it's like I'll just name 2 buildings. One was the Lyceum, bottom of Bowl Street.
Yeah,
I saved that. I saved it.
no,
Me and other people, by the way, but I was very vociferous about it. They wanted to pull it down. And the other building, as you know, was in Cumberland Street called the Post House, the pub.
Yeah.
They wanted to pull that down.
Yeah.
Well, only because I was working for Rod Hall. Remember Rod?
yeah,
Lovely man. Head of all the Liverpool one, absolutely. Friend of ours, as you know. And I said, Rod, you can't allow this to be knocked down, please. Please don't allow this to be knocked down, to build bloody flats, a little block of flats. And I gave him the history. In fact, we went in there for a drink. I said, come and have a drink in there, just see what you think. And it was afternoon, it was early. He said, I can only have one, I said, well, that's all that I'm having. I said, I've got work. I've got to go and give a lecture later on. So anyway, we went to, and he looked around, went in the back and looked around. And he was amazed.
Yeah.
He said, why are the council allowing this? I just went, so I gave him the history. Gave him the history about Marvell, Dickens. Going in there, that is.
Yeah.
Going in there. And he was amazed. I said, can you do something? I said, help us. He said, yeah. And he just went like that to me one day. Your pub. Like that.
Yeah.
Never forget that.
Fantastic.
It's safe.
Fantastic. I think he was we talked before about so many wannabes. He was one of the few genuine who cared. And if he could do something, he did it.
He'd do it.
Yeah. I got him drunk in the other post office, with I was with Drew and Laney, and we'd been there for an afternoon, and then I had a meeting with Rod at his offices, as you know, in the
Lord Street.
Yeah, at 6 o'clock. So I went, and he was constantly on the phone. Different phones were going, and there's only about 4 people in the building. And I just, in the end, after about half an hour, I said to the girl that I've got to go, but this is where I am, and wrote down. And then I get back to Drew, and by this time we're on the Jamesons. And so the phone goes, and I picked it up, and it was Rod. And I said, I'll meet you outside. So went outside by the Blue Coat, met him, brought him in. History in the making.
Do you know what? If it never happened to me, I'd have gone like that. Oh, go away, really? You're not drinking? Because I had to meet him. And
Yeah,
he said, come up. He said, come up to the hotel, in Oak Street, the Oak Street Hotel. So I said, okay. I said, what time? He said, do you mind 6 o'clock? I said, no. I said, I'll be there. So I went up there, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Anthony. It's like, here are your scotch. And he was buried. I said, where was you supposed? This is about 8:15. I said, where was you supposed to go? What did you want me for? He said, I only wanted to have a nice, comfortable drink with you and a chat, and rather than, I said, okay. And I got myself a taxi and went home. What a gentleman.
Wow.
Love Liverpool, love the people.
Yeah.
Johan says, great streams, Sir Carlyle and Sir Brown. Love spending my evenings learning with you, legend. Take care, fellow FC historians. Have a good night, everyone. You too, Johan.
Thank you, Johan. Good night.
Gentlemen, says George, thank you both for tonight. And Anthony, may we one day, when it's completed, can we look closer at the beautiful starry night?
We can, George. Be about a week or so.
So stay tuned, George. Stay tuned for the great unveiling.
The unveiling. Yeah.
Of his latest painting.
Well, do you know what? History again. I've always lived the picture, but reading about it, and it's regarded as one of the most important pieces of art ever made. And Vincent regarded it as a failure. Didn't like it. He felt it was something that he tried and didn't work. And he wrote a letter to one of his friends, and he said, listen, I've tried. He likes to draw what's in front of him, what's just there. He doesn't let imagination rule his paintings. So he said to his friend, I regard it myself as a failure. Wow. And then he died a couple of months after its completion. I was completed in the July, and he died at the end of July.
Wow.
And he never knew the effect it would have on. The one thing, I mean, this is a Friday night theme, this really. I'm going to get on my soapbox one time. Why do all of the marvelous pieces of artwork always end up in American Museum of Chicago? Has got all. What the frick?
The fucking thing, the strawberry field gates.
Yeah.
They're on a fucking drive. Some rich American billionaire's drive who loves the Beatles, and he fucking bought them. I went past them saying, what are you fucking selling them for? You need the money. Well, anyway. Anfield Ross says, Ken Dodd lived and died in our city's great library.
Yeah.
Did you happen to bump into him, Frankie, whilst you was doing your great shows, lad? He became a great friend of mine. He gave me the greatest compliment anyone could ever give me, Anfield. He said, not to me. Do you know who told me this? You're not going to believe it. We mentioned him before. Tom Murphy. He was talking, you know, the good chairs that was up there. And I was late getting there, and Ken was already there outside talking to Tom. And he said, is Frank about? Make it like, you know, Frank about? He said, no, we haven't seen him yet. You know, he might be inside or he might be late getting here. So he said, do you know what? He said, Frank Carlyle is the greatest historian I've ever heard. Now, he, you know, for him to say that to Tom, and genuineness,
Yeah.
honest to God, this is genuineness. I gets there, and I pulls up, right, pays the taxi, goes to Tom, and Tom goes, and ask Tom, honest to God, ask Tom from telling fibs. He was standing there, Tom. And he said, yeah, it is Frank. So anyway, he gets out and he shook his head. I said, hello, Ken. He said, hello, Frank. He said, you coming in? I said, yeah. So anyway, so he said, do you know what I want to do, Frank? Honest, ask Tom Murphy this. You're in touch with Tom. And tell him I want me John Lennon. I've been waiting for it to put on my mantelpiece. And here's what he said, Ken Dodd. He said, I want you to me and I to go on stage. I want you to give a talk the way you normally talk, you know, because you know that I'm humorous. And he said, and I'll say the jokes. He said, but leave all the jokes for me. And that's genuine. Absolutely genuine. I went, come on. He said, no, I want this to happen. Ask Tom Murphy about it. The unfortunate thing, he dies within the year.
Yeah. He's just a beyond legend, just a wonderful man. I was commissioned to paint him for the Royal Court that was in the previous era. And Ken had a falling out with the court because it had become a music venue, and he felt strongly that it should return to its theatrical roots,
the
stage plays and the stuff. So it was quite. This was in remember the little gallery that was in Seal Street. Laney and I had a little 10-foot by 12-foot room in there, and so the lovely team at the Royal Court said, if you can get him to say yes, then there's a whole string of commissions, everyone from him to Arthur Askey to so-and-so, because they were going to line the walls with our comedy heroes, of which we got so many of. So Kenneth said no at first, and then I left the room and went into our room and thought, sorry, opened up a bottle of Famous Grouse, poured myself, and Ken walked past the door, which was open because he was going to the loo. He looked in, and then he said, it's one of them for me. And I said, of course. Give him a glass, and he comes in. And I'd not long finished the Epstein picture, the portrait I did, Brian Epstein. And he saw it, he said, you did that? And I said, yeah. And there was something else he recognised. He said, okay, I'll give you the few poses. Here's one. So I'm looking around, put the glass down, found the camera, took a shot. Here's another one. And he poses again. And then here's the third one. And he spikes all his hair up to the Ken Dodd we know. And then he says, I look forward to seeing the picture when it's finished. And that was like, and then I met him about 4 or 5 times afterwards. The picture never happened. I've started it, and it's still with me, but it never finished because one thing morphs to another. The Royal Court changed hands. They wanted no part of any comedy legends. So the commission was off. I didn't bother me. I would have painted Ken Dodd from the heart, And so I was going to do him as Lennon, the 100 Heads. And it was just trying to find the material. And so it never got, although we talked about it, met up a few times. And,
So,
we should never put things off, should we?
no. I put things off myself, and I've regretted it. We all have regrets, unfortunately. We do. Snapey says, Liverpool certainly saturated with culture. They lowered the tone, letting a verbally restricted Philistine like me live here. But hey ho, electric population down more than compensates for it. And tearing down old buildings is akin to tearing pages from a book. I totally agree there. It becomes unclear, it's criminal and all true. That's brilliant. That's brilliant, Snoopy. Anthony, I turn my hand to masonry, says the Amphitheatre, and I could have made a fortune in restoration work. But thanks for advice, Frankie, on visiting things around the city. You know what it's like. Work overtakes. Like.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Even though it's something we love to do and feel.
Keep reading.
Good night,
Go
Keith.
ahead, lads. Enjoyed the show. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you, Keith.
Very interesting points, Anthony. It's not an American take. It's not an American takes everything. Yes. Wow, what a nice thing to say from Ken Dodd. He isn't appreciated like other comedians from these hours, but he is one of the very best, a very deep thinking man. I'm made up with that Frankie story, thanks. He's a great historian, and he tried to catch me out. He did,
Yeah.
First time he seen me talking, giving a talk, and then he met me afterwards, and he said, "That was remarkable, young man." He said, "So you seem to know everything." I said, "No, I don't." He said, "Yes, you do. You seem to know." And here's what he said. He said, "Do you know anything about Kirby?" I said, "Kirby? Why?" He said, "Simmons Wood. Do you know anything about that?" And I went, "Yeah." He said, "Tell me." And I said, "Well, I said, what has happened?" I said, "King John." I said, "He came around, England and having a look at things." He said, and he always had competitions, either wrestling, believe it or not, at the time. And you're talking the Middle Ages. I said, wrestling or running. I said, they had this runner, and no one could beat this runner. So he has a little competition in Kirby. So he's sitting there on his horse or wherever he was sitting on, a chair. And he had this runner. He says, anyone can beat him. They'll be rewarded. And this young fella came up and he said, okay, go. So he has to run around. And this young lad beat his champion runner. No one could ever beat him. And he beat his champion's his runner. And he said, what's your name? And he said, it's Simon. He said, do you see that over there? And what it was a wood. A woods. He said, that's your land. Hence, Simmons Wood. And Ken looked at me and went, you do know everything, too? I said, no. He said, you do, no one gets that, he said. And shook me hand. Then I gave a talk for him at the Good Turns. The only person to give a talk
Yeah.
Everyone else that was singers, because they were all entertainers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Yeah. I never ever
singers.
went there. I was invited to go a couple of times, certainly when the heads were in the papers and stuff, but no, never. Laney and I
Yeah,
never. Wish I had, but again,
yeah, it was great. I was always invited up. Tom Murphy. Don't forget to ask Tom Murphy about what he said. Me and him doing a show.
Yeah, yeah. We haven't seen him for a while, but I will do.
Yeah, I was just going to say about Anthony Payton, him, Ken Dodd. That would have been fantastic.
I still do it. I think we owe it to ourselves.
I think we owe it. Yeah, to be honest, I think it's own with you especially. With you especially, you've done from the Beatles right through these wonderful people to, one of the great military leaders, and that was, well, poets I'm talking about. So Wilfred Owen, and in between you had everybody else all mixed up, from scientists to surgeons to actors, actresses, everybody. You had. It'd be great if you did finish that up.
I would love to. Since you kindly invited me into your world, Frank. I do have a recurring vision of 6 or 8, like Wilfred, of our legendary true heroes of the city. And not about celebrity, but Ken Dodd goes beyond celebrity, really. He's just like the heart and soul of the city. The humour,
Well, as Christopher says, that would have been tatty hilarious, or words I use every time I
Yeah,
walk past the statue in Lime Street.
yeah.
And it just gives you that. It's a warm feeling, isn't it, really, if you see a statue or a picture of someone much loved in the city, from the city. That is a joke, Anthony. Commissioning not going your way. That would have been great.
Well, we'll have to still make it happen. I feel that's just the way of life.
It is the way of life. And Johan, these end of stream stories are one of the best parts of the show, like heavenly dessert after a great meal. How about
Pie and custard.
apple pie? Yeah, Francine took me shopping last week, and I said, "Yeah, do you want an apple cinnamon?" Because she comes and has a cup of tea with me. She said, "No, but I'd already bought them, but they were sour, sour
Oh.
apple cinnamon." So.
Well, this is why we've got to get you into this Italian delicatessen. Right. I only had half because the kids kind of saw it and hid it from Dad. It's a cake with a pear in it. I don't know what it's Italian, but it was heaven. Oh
Do you know
my!
what? I love pears, right? And it's a fruit I never buy. It's a fruit I never buy.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, it's the way it is. Unless the snapey says, "Good night, one and all. Good night, Steve."
Good night.
I might have I might carry on with the history show on Thursday. I might. I'm not quite so sure yet.
Okay.
If that's okay with you, Anthony.
So I'll fit whatever suits Frank. You send me it. We'll talk, or Jason send me a line. But Thursday not be a good one for your transfer show, because your 72 hours and stuff would be.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to come on with me?
No, but I'll tune in. Listen, I know, you and the guys know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I know the difference between blue paint and green paint. Just. But
Yeah. We can talk about Augustus John when he was looking up at the sea. I'll get Jason. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll have it half time, and I'll get Jason to put Abercrombie Square in. And you see the ceiling. I was talking about what Augustus John, like that.
yeah.
And uncovered the ceiling. How about that?
Is that still in now, Frank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take you up there. You and Laney.
Yeah.
I hate this weather, by the way.
I know. Don't know what it is.
Hate it. Anyway, Anthony, it's been great. Everyone's saying good night. And
thanks, Frank. Yeah, great.
hi, Frank and Anthony and everyone. Up the title winning Red. So listen, all you Reds, I don't know whether it's a title, a title to say, hope so, hope we shine, with a question mark.
Yeah.
Or have we signed, question mark. Okay, so we'll have a football show on Thursday. I'll have the usual current affairs on Friday. The film show, as usual, on the Saturday. So I'll have you. Hope to see you Thursday. Johan, Snapey, Anfield, Christopher, take care, legend. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
Frankie, because there's so much history, I'd love if you and we did another show. Yeah, say. Tell you what we'll do. How's this? Compromise. Fancy a compromise?
Absolutely.
We'll do a history show first hour.
Yeah.
Second half, we'll do whether we'll.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Early side.
Yeah, that's
say, I've had enough, I'm going now, and I'll see you next week. That's all you've got to say. Is that okay?
That's fab, Frank.
Okay. So I'll see you Thursday.
See you Thursday.
Right, Frankie and Anthony, great show, and it's only show I'm sober for with Frankie, and he's gone to bed, and she's gone to bed as well. So it's been great. He's horrible, isn't he? That's this. What's Jason? There's the Audubon book. Look.
Oh.
53 million, that's worth. 50, and Cameron wanted to take it away from us.
Did you do it on Kindle?
It's horrible, He's a horrible man, Cameron.
Yeah. Oh, he's a loathsome. Wouldn't even call him a human being. He's just everything he's touched is turned to
offshore banking as well. Him and his family. Yeah. Offshore like banking. I paid taxes all my bloody life. You have. Laney has.
Yeah.
Your dad has. Your mum and everybody. And he's got all that money offshore. Like that moan one. Why shouldn't she be in jail? That woman. Why should she serving at least 25 years in prison?
Oh my
for the
God.
Scandal of stealing money, that PPE stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to have them to have that up, because some people might have left. So I'm going to ask Jason to leave that Audubon book out. Yeah, you've got to, Anfield. You've got to. Look at that. That's what he drew, That painted Audubon. Incredible. Look at that. Well, that's down your street, to be honest. Cameron the top can't stand them, sorry. Well, we've been talking about lots of things, but I want that up. Jason's great, and
Yeah, he is.
and do me a favour, Jason. I know that you're there. I'm finishing now. Just have a few. Have the first one, where you see the full book, and it's in a special container. The glass at a temperature to keep it pristine.
Yeah.
It's worth a lot more. I'm going back years ago when it was when Cameron was in power. It was worth 53 million. So I'm going to ask Jason. There it is. Look at our library. So I'll ask Jason to show a few pictures as well from it. And on that wonderful note, Anthony, I'll see you for the first hour. And we can talk about some of this. We can talk about the library. I'll ask Jason to put up a few pictures of the library. That's where I did a hell of a lot of studying. Even from a young boy, I used to bunk it.
Yeah.
So, is that okay with you, Anthony?
That is absolutely fine with me, Frank. Yeah, love it.
And next week,
Look,
we'll definitely do characters. So get ready. So be prepared for them. Okay.
characters and curiosities.
Yes. The Anfield. Right, lads, it's cocoa time. Right, Anfield.
Anfield.
And it's faster than Jamie from Joe Rogan, Jason. He is, isn't he?
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
Great show tonight. Thank you both. Next show sounds like a cracker. It will be, honestly.
Thank you.
I'll give you I'll send you the text later, Toscana. Okay. See you all later. Nice all. Ciao. Ciao, Anfield. Anthony, thank you so much. It's been great. See you Thursday.
Yeah. Thank you, Frank.
And don't forget the characters next week.
No.
Next week. And a little hours on Thursday.
Yeah.
I just want to thank all of you for joining Anthony and myself, keeping us company. And there's where you can get us wonderful artwork. Search Facebook, Instagram, or Google for Anthony Brown Artist. That's all you've got to do. And look at Anthony's work. And he mentioned there 100 Liverpool heads thinking as one. It was one of the great commissions I've ever seen. Honestly, some of the people that he chose to do was quite remarkable. And I'm talking about every walk of life, from top professionals to, can I mention Drew Schofield, to the likes of him. Even Stephen Graham said Andrew Schofield is the greatest actor to come out of Liverpool. a modest man, and we love him, don't we, Anthony?
We do. We do, Frank. We do.
For the lad. I'd love to have him on. I know he's busy, like, acting his head off. I'd love to have him on a show, once. But I hope to have him on the thing that I'm actually doing. I'll be around August, though. Talking to people, yourself included. Yeah. So it's just for me to say thank you so much, everybody. Hope to see you on Thursday. Hope to see you Friday and Saturday morning. I know it sounds a lot like listening to me. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all, guys. And good night to all.
Good night, everybody. Ciao. Ciao, Bella. Ci vediamo.